It's got my name spelled wrong too. Hey, good morning again. Please, we are live, we are recording, we may proceed with the public review session.
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals review session for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. What happened?
We have to turn the fan. We cannot hear the room.
You can turn the volume.
Can't hear me?
There's an echo in the room.
You can hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, the problem is the room is so hot. We have a very loud fan.
You think we can turn the volume up on the TV? No, Carla.
Can we turn the volume of the speaker?
For the television. They can hear us, they say.
Yeah, they can hear us, but we cannot hear anybody.
Tony, can you try talking again?
Hello?
Hey, Tony.
We're just doing a volume check. Hi.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
That's all right.
As long as I don't lose internet service.
I think we're
You can close the door.
What?
Okay.
That'll be good?
Yeah.
Let's proceed?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want me to call those two cases together or separately?
We need to call them separately.
Okay. So once again, good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals review session for February 11th, 2025. Please note for the record that Commissioner Shetter is joining us virtually as well as I am. The first items up are appeals calendar, new cases. Item number 15, 2024, 43A, 42 Joanne Court, Staten Island.
So we received proof of initial filing and hearing notices. Community Board has approved this application. This is an application for a GCL 35 to develop a 2-story, 1-family home on the subject lot that is located within the bed of a map street. But it is an unbuilt portion of a street called Orangeburg Avenue. Just please note that back in 2000, BSA did approve a GCL 36 for this site and other sites. And DOB did issue a determination back in 2022 that that continues to allow the GCL 36, but since this site and the site that we're going to hear next are on a mapped street bed, GCL 35 is being waiver is being requested. So we have a fire department note. The fire department provided a marked up plan showing where no parking and no standing signs have to be provided. For this particular site, it would have to be provided from Joanne Court to Poughkeepsie Court to maintain the minimum width for fire apparatus to turn. And there really were not any other comments, and this is not in a DEC jurisdiction site. We don't need any other sign off on this, but based on the FDNY comment, the applicant should revise the plan to reflect the notes. And other than that, I'm very satisfied with this application. Vice Chair Shibeta.
Thank you, Chair. No comment on this application.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
I'm also satisfied with the application.
Thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't seen a FEMA map. So if they can provide us with one, and if just to save time, if it's in a flood zone at the BSA standard, no. And I'm also asking them if the site is under any other DEC. I understand that it's not under the state DEC jurisdiction because they provided a letter saying that, but if it's under US jurisdiction, also add the standard, regarding DEC. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have DEP and DOT sign on.
Oh, we do have DOT and DEP
Do we?
sign off?
I'm saying you didn't mention it.
I didn't see it in the
So we're
file.
still waiting. Okay.
But I think, no, but hold
Yeah,
on.
I believe
hold
I
on.
saw an email yesterday.
Yeah, there
I
was
saw an
something else.
email yesterday regarding Joanne Court. It's DOT comments maybe.
Yeah,
But the DOT comment was more for clarification of some questions and comments.
right.
And interagency review, I just want to look at DEP comment. I just want to look at the DEP comment. DEP wants a site survey of the plan. Drainage plan. Yeah. Yeah, they want a drainage plan. I'm sorry, so I missed that one. Provide a copy of the easement document, site survey, drainage plan.
Jalene's hands is up.
Yes, Jeline?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say I submitted the survey to DEP, but the reviewer is on leave. I'll just have to wait for her to review all the materials.
So have these notes, DEP notes been sent to the applicant?
Yes, and I believe I sent the survey to DEP, and I'm just waiting for their review.
Okay, because I think the ask was not just the site survey, it asked for site survey to show the 8-foot diameter, then it asked for easement document and drainage plan.
Right.
Okay, all right, as long as all of those have been provided, okay. And DOT, I would say, interestingly enough, I mean, this portion of Orangeburg Street has not been built at all. It is unmapped for the entire length from Highland Boulevard to Boardwalk, which is also not a built street. So I think it's interesting that back in 2000, BSA did approve a GCL 36 on a larger portion of this site. And the BSA resolution states that in sometime in December of 1999, DOT had issued no objection to the proposed action. So that's what I gathered from the BSA resolution. So it's again one of those things where DOT needs to be informed of the history of the case and how the project has proceeded. Because these two buildings are part of a larger development project that was approved. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sheda. Commissioner Yoon?
Thank you. I thought the DOT comments were very, more of clarifications and quite minor. So I didn't take them to have any significant objection to the application.
I hope not. I don't know if this is the series of the first. So that's why I just want to make sure we are informing DOT of all the history accordingly. I agree with you. The comments that DOT has provided is more of clarification.
I had no comments on this.
Okay.
Item number 16, 2024 44A, 62 Joanne Court, Staten Island.
Okay, we received proof of initial filing and hearing notice. Community board has approved this, similar to the previous one. This is also seeking a GCL 35 to develop a 2-story, 1-family home that is located on a bit of a map street called Orangeburg that has been unbuilt and remains unbuilt from Highland Boulevard to Boardwalk Avenue. Similar to the other case, there was a GCL 36 that was approved by the board back in 2000. We have received similar comments from fire department, where fire department has provided a marked up plan showing that no parking, no standing sign will need to be posted from Discella or Discella, how would I pronounce it? Lane to Joanna Court to maintain the minimum width for the fire fire apparatus to turn. And we also received a letter from New York State DEC stating that the property is not within the DEC jurisdiction. So the applicant needs to revise the plans to reflect fire department notes. And I think I know what Commissioner Sheta is going to ask, so I will let Commissioner Sheta ask that question and those notes be added to the plan. But other than that, I have no comments on this application. Vice Chair Shibata.
No further comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
No comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I see in comments, firm map need to be submitted, and if in flood zone, add the standard note. And again, if any other DEC jurisdiction has control on the site, they need to add the standard note regarding DEC. Thank you.
I'm just curious, what other DEC jurisdiction there could be?
Like the US DEC jurisdiction. State and the federal DEC jurisdiction.
I see. Okay. Commissioner Yoon.
Thank you. I just want to note that I thought I did see it, but there are flood maps. They're just not labeled flood or firm. But in each file, there's a file that is just numbers with a G at the end, and it's a panel from the firm map. So
Oh,
they
really?
appear not to be in a high hazard flood zone. But
Hold on, I'm looking at it.
take a look. I think they're disguised because they're not labeled as flood maps. I have no comments.
Where are they located? No, the one I looked at is not a flood map. Are they in the application folder?
No, the main folder dated January 27th. Of this year. And it starts with 360497031.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I see. I
that's-
see. Yeah, this is the number actually for an index map, maybe.
It's a flood map.
It is? Okay.
It's a panel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's a flood panel map.
Yep, I opened it. I'm looking at it. Give me 1 second, please.
Yeah, it's outside based on this. It's well, it's in, is it in?
It's taken forever for me to load. Come on.
It's.
Okay, if it's not in the flood zone, it is what it is. I take it. But I can look at it on my screen if
So look at it over the break and then.
I will. Here we go. It loaded. Yes, it's not in the flood zone. Thank you.
So then a note is not needed?
No, they don't need the note.
Okay. And this is for both cases?
Yes, the two sites are adjacent. Yes. Yes, actually the grade level is elevation 15, so this is probably, yeah, that's why. Yeah, it's outside the flood zone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Yoon. I
Yeah.
think if it was marked as a firm map, we would have picked on it very quickly.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh,
Thank
sure.
you. Commissioner Yoon, do you have any comments?
No comments.
Okay. Okay,
Zoning calendar, continued hearing items, item number 17, 2022, 88BZ, 318 Seguin Avenue, Staten Island.
okay, so this case was last heard in last year in July. And then applicant requested an adjournment for December. And at that time, board had directed the applicant that and warned the applicant that if documents were not provided by the due date, board will dismiss the application. Have not received anything to date, and applicant was considering another adjournment request. And the applicant was asked to appear before the board to explain the reason for the adjournment, which I believe the applicant is unable to do because applicant is out of state. Applicant also indicated to our project manager that they are redesigning the project, and it requires significant downscaling to meet the parking requirement, and the architect is in the process of finalizing the revised layout. So I leave it to the board to help me in making a determination how we proceed. The record is open. It has not been called for adjournment. I do not know if public is going to join in on a call. So if you want to, we can discuss it now, or we can discuss the matter during the public hearing.
I think we should leave, I think we should wait till the public hearing, see if the public has anything to say. And at that point, we can indicate if we vote to close.
The project manager could confirm, but I believe representatives will be appearing for this today.
Oh, they will?
Or affiliates with the representative, but not the representative themselves. Or not the applicant.
Okay. Maybe that's a new information.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yeah, I concur with General Counsel because this hasn't been formally adjourned, and there may be members of the public attending.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown, thank you. I asked Commissioner
Sorry.
Brown to speak, so let.
I was gonna say, after hearing from the community, why not then close it and give them 30 days to give us submission, and then we reopen it if it addresses all of the issues?
Yeah.
With a letter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'm sorry. In the event that the board determines to close the matter, would a letter be going out to the property owner?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
General Counsel.
The applicant had emailed their project manager, representing that she had just emailed and asked the architect or the owner to attend the hearing. It's out of their hands if they don't attend, is what they represented. Unable to revise any of the paperwork and resubmit to BSA unless they receive the updated drawings from the architect. So that's where it's been left.
Okay. Any comments from Commissioner Shada, Commissioner Yu?
For me, I agree with the Commissioner Darat Brown. I believe we should close it and give him a time span, and if they submit, we can reopen. If not, then we can dismiss it. I agree on that.
Okay. All right. Let's then see what happens in the public hearing, during the public hearing. If anybody from the applicant's team shows up on the community board, and we will take their course of action accordingly. Thank you.
Next item, item number 18, 2024-25 BC, 17 Grove Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay. At the last hearing, applicant was asked to verify a couple of things. One of them was verify the easements that are on the property and provide more information regarding the parking demand and supply analysis. So regarding the easement, according to a declaration of easement agreement from 2015, it seems lot 117 has a 12-foot wide easement and a right-of-way from its lot 117 to Grove Avenue. And similarly, based on information that has been provided by Mr. Ibrahim, who is the owner of lot 116, and Mr. Ibrahim submitted a copy of a land survey from 2009, which shows that a 4-foot wide easement along the northeast lot line of Grove Avenue has to be provided and this was executed as early as 1927. So there are two easements that are affecting this site, and therefore we recognize that that is one of the reason why the way the configuration of the parking is, and that additional parking spaces, because that was one of the questions, cannot be provided because of these existing easements. Now, applicant states that apart from that, they couldn't find any other easement with regards to the 25-foot wide easement that was stated that we saw in the tax map. So those are the only two that were evident based on their survey. Now, I don't think board in this case is going to weigh in on which easement overrides the other one. That is for a different court situation. We are just acknowledging that there are two easements and that these two easements would in ways affect the placement of the parking and the utilization of this site. So that takes me to the site plan. So regarding the site plan, the applicant needs to show both easements, the overlapping easements of lot 117 and lot 116. And they need to add a note to the plan citing the applicable documents for each of the easements for future board and for DOB. I think these things get lost, so it would be good to carry it forward, especially through the special permit. So the 4-foot wide easement that is shown on the plan is referred as a pedestrian easement in that survey that was provided, is indicated as a pedestrian easement as described in LIBOR 640, page 224, dated 4/25/1927. All of that information should be included and clearly stated in the plans. Same thing with lot 117. Now, the portion of the 4-foot wide easement along the northern lot line, I would like to know how that will be demarcated on the site so that it ensures that it would not be encroached on by any vehicles or part of the operation. So that is for the applicant. Like in the case of the 12-foot wide easement, it's the owner of lot 117 who's responsible for having a fence, 6-foot high fence separating that. But in the case of 4-foot, it's wide easement, it is not. So the applicant needs to figure out a solution to address that, to separate out that easement area from the site. Because I'm saying that because I see the loading zone is overlapping with the 4-foot wide easement, and so that needs to be corrected. Now, according to the cover letter, P2 parking lot plan P2, the parking lots will be closed after business hours with a security gate. Now, for the gates to be effective, there needs to be a fencing or something or to which the gate has to stand, and the site has to be secured. So I do not see how that is going to be achieved because I do not see any fencing proposal along the street frontages, and I do not see on the plan where the gates are going to be located. So these plans are very, very basic. There needs more detailing on this plan, and that needs to be provided. And if the applicant is not familiar with the kind of requirements and the detailing that we look for, we can provide you with a sample. Also, the applicant needs to put a stop sign at the exit and put a stop line on the surface, and also need to provide directional arrows in the parking area to manage the direction flow at the site. The applicant should provide a landscaping detail along that is being proposed along Grove Street and the other street. There should be, I think they should consider providing a wheel stop for all the parking spaces, especially the ones that are abutting the easement, to ensure that there is no damage caused to the fences or to the easement area is not encroached upon. Please note that zoning resolution section 33-04, street tree planting is required along the frontage of the zoning lot, which is not being waived by the board. So the applicant should revise the plan accordingly. Now, moving on to the critical comment, which is the parking demand analysis. In the revised statement of fact, applicant used a DOT standard for medical facilities in Staten Island. And based on that, 72% of the staff and patient will be arriving by private auto. That's the modal split DOT has applied. Now, for the proposed development, the peak parking demand will be 77 spaces on weekdays, which is 10 a.m. to 11, and 40 on Saturdays, same period, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Now, this is less than the with action peak accumulation of 35 on a weekday and 18 on a Saturday. So based on the DOT standard, there would be a parking supply shortfall on the site. To address the shortfall, applicant analyzed on-street parking space within a quarter-mile area of the parking to identify parking supply. Applicant compared no action and existing on-street parking supply within this quarter-mile area of the site and identified available on-street parking spaces that would meet the DOT-based project accumulation. So with 100 staff coming and 240 clients coming daily, applying the DOT standard and what I'm noticing is that first of all, I think my concern in this case is that the DOT standard looks at a worst case, whereas based on an existing facility of a survey, which was very, very rudimentary and not a very thoroughly baked out survey, with action, peak accumulation during weekdays and Saturdays is projected to be 35 vehicles and 18 respectively for Saturday for the same period of 10 to 11. Now, so based on the site survey, applicant is stating it would meet the on-site parking. It would be able to meet the demand by providing 38 on-site parking spaces. Now, the site survey was done, it seems, for the peak period of 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Now, that is not when the staff is arriving. Facility will be operating from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Saturdays. Now, applicant was asked to provide a much more detailed assessment of the existing operation, which the applicant has failed to provide, and that's why I'm raising this question. And this could have been avoided if the applicant had provided all these answers. So applicant was asked to provide a breakdown by staff and visitors by hour from 8 a.m. all the way till the closing. Since that was not provided, I'm going to assume that all 100 staff will be arriving at the site by 8 a.m. Since no staff survey was provided, I'm going to assume that 72% are arriving by auto. And based on that information provided, then all 38 on-site parking spaces are going to be occupied by staff, achieving 100% occupancy by 8 a.m. or even 8:30 a.m., let's say. So remaining 34 staff will have to find parking on street. This would reduce the availability of on-street parking spaces during the AM period from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and from 220 to 186 spaces. Now, I have to say, I'm also skeptical about the way the on-street parking survey was analyzed. I had asked the applicant to clarify if the curb cuts and the driveways to garages and entryways have been deducted from the curb length. That was not confirmed. The information the board has directed the applicant to provide was to help support its justification. Survey of the users, both staff and visitors of the existing facility would have provided a very strong evidence that while DOT's assessment is conservative, operation at the site would require less reliance on on-street parking spaces. And board has asked for the survey and DOT has accepted for in similar cases such survey to kind of to come to this conclusion. that I'm coming at. So the applicant is making it very difficult for us to accept DOT's assessment as the standalone by just proving numerically that there is enough space on the site for not only for the overspilling of 34 staff to find parking by 8 a.m., but also during the peak period when they're expecting visitors 10 to 12 p.m., 10 to 11 a.m. So I am very, very frustrated and I'm disappointed in the way the application has been executed because I know the transportation team can do better. And I was expecting that response to help us kind of provide a much better argument as to why even using DOT's conservative assessment, the reality and the practice of this operation would not have great reliance on on-street parking. Vice Chair Shibata.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with your comments. I have nothing further to add.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
I have no other question.
Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with your comments. I totally agree with them. I share the same concerns you have. The dependency on the on-street parking here is like going to a great extent. I'm not sure about the feasibility of that. In addition, if a field survey is done for the existing facility, this is like the master of evidence for me and for anyone. Doing actual measurements for something existing is like that, like the cutting edge for any like analysis that someone want to do. I would think that they wanted to avoid like field work, but they already have done like much field work by surveying the on-street parking within a quarter mile. So I'm not sure why they are reluctant to survey the existing facility. And again, I have concerns regarding dependency on the on-street parking to the extent they have gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Yoon.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
New cases, item number 19, 2024-31BZ, 166 North 12th Street, Brooklyn.
We received proof of initial filing and hearing notices. Community Board has approved this application. We did also receive a letter of support from Council Member Ressler. Okay. So this is an application for a bulk variance to develop an as-of-right community facility development, use group 3A on the subject zoning lots. Applicant is seeking a waiver of the rear yard and the lot coverage. So I want to first start with the way the zoning resolution is being applied here. And a critical component, and that affects the extent of the hardship that is being asked. So per zoning resolution section 24-33B2, permitted obstructions in rear yard up to a height of 23 feet or 1 story, whichever is less, is permitted. And per zoning resolution section 24-12, building up to a height of 23 foot, above that base is excluded from lot coverage and the maximum permitted lot coverage. So 60% lot coverage must then meet, must be applied above the height of 23 feet. So in this case, diagrammatically, what actually the waiver is really between the distance of the 23 feet and the proposed building height, and not the rest of the volume as it's been diagrammatically shown. So that's a significant reduction of the bulk, and this should have been picked up by the team. You can look through the zoning resolution sections of 24-33B2 and 24-12. So also please check the zoning resolution sections with regards to the applicability height and setback requirements in an R6A district. What has been applied in R6 district in the zoning chart seems to be not consistent. In an R6A district, per zoning resolution section 24-50, zoning resolution section 23-43 applies. It permits 40-foot to 65-foot street wall height and a maximum height of 75-foot building height. And a setback depth of 15 feet on a narrow street. Not that you're requesting any of these waivers, but I just want to make sure your zoning chart represents the applicable regulations correctly. So this is an application that has been filed by Kinetic Light, a registered nonprofit disabilities arts organization that is proposing a development disability art center with a theater, artists boarding, and company support spaces to satisfy the programmatic need of Kinetic Light. The site is built with a non-conforming and a non-complying structure, which based on the reports provided seems to be in very precarious condition. And the applicant is, as I mentioned, is only seeking a waiver of the rear yard and lot coverage. Rest of it is all as of right, including the FAR. So I want to go through a reverse way of looking at 7221. I would say, I don't want to touch A now. I want to leave that for the last. But when I look at C from a neighborhood context, I don't see any issues. With regards to D, self-created hardship, I do not see an issue. B, it's a nonprofit organization, so it's exempt as part of the B finding. The question is, the uniqueness. And in this case, the applicant approached it through a deference. Now, as we were looking through the zoning resolution section, especially with the adoption of zoning for housing opportunity, there's a new text that's been introduced. And I would strongly suggest the applicant consider looking at this text because that I would affords more flexibility in what the applicant is requesting, and rather than relying solely on a deference. While I think this is a laudable project. It is none. I don't think there is one like this in New York, or for that matter, anywhere that I'm aware of. And the documents that it has provided and the support it has from the disabilities communities and from the academic communities that would want to work with this institution in future. These are fantastic goals, and I do want this project to, this entity to succeed in whatever they want to do, because it is a much needed proposal. However, I think before we dig into the deference argument and apply that, there might be a much easier way and a cleaner way to address the need of this project through this new zoning resolution section 54-52. And maybe even 51, maybe both of them, combination of both could be applied. But I want the applicant to look at that and reevaluate their A finding based on that. And it can be layered. It can be combination of that zoning resolution section 54-52. I'm sorry, 54-52. And for those who, and some of the commissioners may not be aware of it, and the section is 54-52, accessibility or safety retrofits. And it is, it states, notwithstanding the other provisions of this chapter, in all district, an enlargement, extension, conversion, change of use, or other alteration to a building that furthers the design and construction of facilities for accessibility for individuals with disabilities, or furthers building safety by greater conformance with the most recent New York City construction codes may create a new non-compliance or increase the degree of non-compliance, provided that increases to non-compliance or the creation of new non-compliance with regards to A, maximum FAR, shall not exceed 10% of the existing floor area or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. B, required open space yards, rear yard equivalents or courts. I won't get into the detail. I think you're looking at the text and the permitted height and setback, and it also says the allowance for permitted obstruction may be applied. So I think in this case, there might be a way to link the fact that this existing building is in such precarious condition and may not be salvageable. And even if it was salvageable, the cost would be too much of a burden for a nonprofit organization to endure. That tearing a building down would be the only option, and therefore it would not be eligible for going directly to DOB for a waiver or of pursuant to 5452. That's kind of how I'm leaning on this, and therefore ask for the additional and therefore these require waiver of the rear yard, which this text would allow, would be applied also. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, it's short. And this section doesn't apply because the applicant's proposing a development under zoning and not an enlargement or an alteration. To the extent the applicant did tear down the building and rebuild to CO, it appears that this section would be permitted as of right to foster these improvements. However, they would lose any pre-existing non-compliances.
Right.
So a waiver under this section, the board would evaluate whether it would be appropriate to put back those pre-existing non-compliances and allow a further enlargement within this section to that degree.
Yeah. So I think this would be a cleaner and quicker way to achieve the opportunity to build this project. That's my take on it. And I think it would be easy to meet the minimal. It's just getting to the A. Any other suggestions, General Counsel? No. Vice Chair Shibata.
Thank you, Chair. It is clear to me that this matter would merit deference and/or discretion. That being said, the applicant has a separate avenue of relief in 73-54-52 paired with the building's obsolescence, as explained by you, Chair, and furthered by the General Counsel. Under those circumstances, that should be explored first before the board should consider such a measure of last resort. This is a very small ask, and I'm confident that the applicant, along with the staff, can swiftly come to a resolution here.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown.
I agree with you, Chair, that retooling the application so that it focuses in on ZR section 54-52 and the promotion of accessibility in the renovating of building stock is something that we should be supportive as well. And if it saves a not-for-profit time and money in achieving the same goals that they would achieve if they had rebuilt under CR 54-52 and then applied to have that waiver with DOB, then we should be the ones who help to streamline the application. And so I'm supportive of the application as provided it is reworked and retooled.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shetta.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with what's being said. I'm supportive of this application. I did look at the existing condition report by Selman's Engineering, and I concur with them that yes, the building is in very bad shape. I saw some pictures showing some walls are bulging or buckling. So I do agree that the building is in very bad condition. Their evaluation to the building is that it's in unstable condition, and the final recommendation was to knock down the building. I did wish that I see another recommendation in the report indicating that until the demolition is done, the owner or whoever responsible for this building make sure that this building is secured, kept in a stable condition by providing proper shoring or whatever structural support it temporarily needs, to make sure that adjacent properties are protected according to the New York City Building Code and any other applicable regulation. I haven't seen that. Again, I did wish that the structure engineer included something like that. Since it wasn't included, I'm asking the applicant to affirm us that he's gonna achieve this goal, to make sure that the welfare of the public is properly protected. The other comment I have, I saw some noise mitigation measures indicated in the noise study. However, they were not shown on the drawings / the plans. If they're gonna proceed with the same, I recommend that they add these measures to the plans and the sections. That's all what I have for now. Thank you.
So just regarding the shoring of the building, first of all, they have to comply with all the building code regulations and standards. So I don't think we are asking them to ignore it. That is their responsibility. They need to do that. And the applicant is going to enter into an agreement with the property owner to build on this site. So the applicant doesn't own the site. They will enter into an agreement with the owner should the board grant this approval. And Commissioner Yoon, thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. I agree that the application of this new section, which is seems like a great section to, based on this intent to precisely for this reason, to make buildings more accessible and to have it be not in this case, but in some cases an as of right renovation, simplifies the renovation of buildings throughout the city. And I think that's a great tool for generally all buildings and can be a great tool here in this variance. I wanted to just show, maybe just for the sake of everyone on the board and also everyone listening in, what the chair was saying about the permitted obstructions in the rear yard, which I also noted. So if I believe this, what's being proposed, this is the 23 feet above curb level. So this whole chunk here would not be part of the waiver requested. And it's a pretty significant reduction in what's being asked for. So I think that's an important thing diagrammatically and in all of the narratives to make sure that you include in any subsequent submissions. So beyond the strategy for how to approach the variance, I also wanted to make sure that any noise impact from the use of terraces be addressed on the plans, as Commissioner Sheda mentioned. And I noticed that both elevators go to the main roof, which is a mechanical roof. It looks like there's no occupancy, but just please clarify if there's any use for the topmost roof, because normally we don't see two elevators go up there if it's just for maintenance and mechanical. And this would be just to make sure that we understand if there are any other uses that would create any noise impacts to surrounding residences. That's all I have.
And interestingly, I was also looking at prior board cases where it was a layered approach of justifying the 7221A for nonprofit organization. One was a Ronald McDonald House, and the other one was the BAM. BAM, being a nonprofit cultural institution, the location of the site required many variances, including floor area, height and setback, and others. But the reason that it needed that location, there was a proximity, but more importantly, it's the program of the space that could not be fitted into an existing building, and they needed all the waivers. So in this case, I think the applicant should look at that case to help build its layer of the programmatic argument. And also in the case of Ronald McDonald, I think that it was the program space that required waiver of much of the bulk regulation. So those would be, I would say, two cases while, the deference of Cornell was not applied, but the programmatic element tied with other factors, proximity. In this case, it would be more of 54-52 with the program element. I think that it has to be a little bit more nuanced, layered way of approaching the argument for A.
Do you want to tell them the case numbers, or I have them if you want to?
Oh, you do have the case
Yeah,
numbers?
the cases that the chair is referencing, the BAM case, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, is 195-09-BZ, and the Ronald McDonald House is 253-89-BZ.
250-89.
253-89-BZ.
Okay. Thank you. So those who are listening in, please, take note of what we are saying, and do reach out to our counsel, our executive director, project manager, if you have any other questions. Let's go to the next case. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
The final case, item number 2024-41BZ, 10539 Cross Bay Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, we received proof of initial filing and hearing notices. Community board approved with conditions. The conditions are that not approved without DOT approval of the traffic impact. Community board be copied throughout the submission process of the traffic impact study to DOT and provide further commitment to BSA when DOT has completed its review and approval. All proposed site lighting be faced inward, proposed fencing and landscaping be installed and maintained as noted on the plan, and request a restrictive declaration that there be no opening from the rear of the site to 95th Street or installation be created, that there be no such access opening on the 95th Street. We also received 2 letters of objection. Concerns that were raised were related to traffic, pedestrian safety. Also rodent issue was raised, and we received a letter of support. Now, I just want everybody to know who are listening in is that submissions that are made to BSA are and will continue to be shared with the community board, and we do direct the applicants to share all submissions with the community board. We will continue to do that with this application. And should the board approve the project, the operator, property owner has to adhere to everything that is stated in the BSA approved plan. And it is for DOB to then ensure that the building is operating in conformance with the approved plan. But we are not there yet. We have a long way to go. This is an application for a use variance to develop a new eating and drinking establishment with an accessory drive-through on the subject site. The site is developed with a legally non-conforming eating and drinking establishment where the board had granted a variance to enlarge the existing eating and drinking establishment back in 2002. So I just want to start off with a couple of zoning resolution clarification, because that is extremely critical for this site and how it is going to affect the as of right development. So the applicant must review the ZHO text and revise its zoning chart and the as of right analysis accordingly. Need to revise the use group to current use group number on all documents. Does the site meet the requirements for qualifying site pursuant to ZHO? Which it does. It seems it does. And the statement of fact in that case states it, but it needs to elaborate why it qualifies as a qualifying site. And I believe the site does qualify as a qualifying residential site. And if it does, then the qualifying FAR and the multiple dwelling unit then need to be consistently applied, and the applicable height and setback and other bulk parameters also need to be applied consistently. One cannot pick and choose the elements and then say it's not feasible. So if it's a qualifying site, and you're applying for a full 1.5 FAR that is permitted to a qualifying residential site, then build out to a 1.5 FAR, which allows different types of building typology, not just detached and semi-detached, but also multiple dwelling units. And ZHO was specifically designed and created and adopted to allow these sites, such sites to be developed. So applicant has to go through this exercise. For example, for a qualifying residence site, a 35-foot base height and a 45-foot building height would be permitted. The applicable FAR for community facilities 2.0. 80% lot coverage is permitted for multiple dwelling unit. The side yards may not be required pursuant to zoning resolution section 23-331C, since there is a distance of more than 8 foot from the abutting residential home on lot 70 to the subject lot. So there are a lot of ways to look through the ZHO and apply those without using a very blanket standalone 1 and 2 family homes. And based on my site visits, these are not the only, there is a mix of building typology in this area. So you cannot just say this is the only kind of building type that is going to work here. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself because I do think it is very important for you to establish an as-of-right building and prove why an as-of-right building is not viable. So the applicant must revise the as-of-right analysis and evaluate the site based on that, and then identify the uniqueness and the hardship associated with it. So the applicant says that the site is historically an L-shaped lot has been considered irregular for residential use. It may have been because the zoning regulation at that time was a lot more limiting and had a lot more requirements of yards and others. Whereas, as I mentioned, the ZHO has really opened the opportunity for such sites to come into play. So the applicant needs to use the ZHO, and the historic reference needs to be reevaluated, and it cannot be accepted as a status quo. ZHO affords more flexibility with the range of building types, density, elimination of parking, reduction of yard depths, which would make this site viable for housing with homes fronting both on Cross Bay Boulevard and on 95th Street. ZHO was designed to make such sites viable. The as-of-right based on multiple dwelling unit has to be reflected in the uniqueness study also. So the applicant needs to provide a chart of the sites that are being analyzed with regards to the orientation of the residential use towards Cross Bay. Now, that was one of the hardship that was indicated. Interestingly enough, it was, again, I felt it was picking and choosing of sites. So there is a portion of Cross Bay Boulevard that has a commercial overlay where you do see ground floor commercial with residential above. There is another portion of Cross Bay Boulevard, including the subject site and a large section of Cross Bay Boulevard to the, I would say, to the south, right? Away from Rockaway Boulevard. It is zoned just with residential with no commercial overlay, and there are ground floor commercial uses with residential uses above fronting on Cross Bay Boulevard. So the applicant needs to provide a chart of the sites that are being analyzed. The map shows certain sites that are purely in residential, where when per street, as I mentioned, there are homes, there are buildings with ground floor non-residential uses. So the analysis needs to be revised. And really the focus should be looking at the Cross Bay frontage from Rockaway Boulevard to 133rd Avenue to make the argument that the residential use above a non-residential use is not existing at this site and is not viable. Okay, and that would be part of a financial, the viability. The other hardship that the applicant identified was the current use is not viable, it's outdated, and need to update the operation. And there was a letter that was provided from a realtor for diners stating this, that the site was marketed, there were no takers, and the diner is a dying interest. And with that, a New York Times article has been provided. I have to say, I'm one of probably the few people who loves eating at a diner. I love that
Yeah.
feel of it. But I'm an oldie.
Okay.
I think we are oldie. However, while the diner food may not be attractive, that doesn't mean the diner structure is not. And diner structure cannot be improved upon. And regarding the ADA accessibility, yes, I do see that there are 4 flights of stairs that are leading to the existing building. Why couldn't a simple lolly, what are those? A Lula kind of elevator be provided on one portion of it? Could the building footprint be expanded to allow for a new kind of operation where you probably need new kind of storage devising or other requirements to comply with health standards and other things? All in all, I'm saying is that just stating it and giving a New York Times article is not good enough for you to say, therefore it's obsolete. There's much more work that needs to be done on this. So on the financial, I have to say, if you are not going to provide a thorough analysis of an as-of-right development, I don't see the point of reviewing the as-of-right comparison with the proposed. And with regards to the neighborhood character, even if the board were to consider a standalone restaurant with a drive-through, the site needs a lot of redesigning. As it's shown, it is going to add, the way it's laid out, it is showing a good part of the roadway. It's abutting a residential building. And so I want to hold off on my statement on the neighborhood character for now, because I want to see what the as-of-right can do. And based on that, the financial. And I am willing to consider an alternate, even if that means you provide residential on 95th Street and commercial, a standalone commercial on Cross Bay, or a residential, purely residential on 95th, with a combination of ground floor retail with residential above, and prove the viability of these options before we can just start analyzing a proposed use on this site. So should I continue with the self-created? I think I'm satisfied with the self-created hardship. I do think the combined lot of that sliver lot of that 45 wouldn't have really addressed or resolved this hardship, and it would have still been required. So minimal, I'm absolutely not there yet. You have to go through the as-of-right and consider alternate, lesser variance alternatives before we can even look at the proposal. Okay. Vice Chair Shibata.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything you said. I do believe that before we can give this a deeper look, they should really dive into more of the as of right. With regard to the new ZHO, I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
So I agree that the new ZHO and what it allows these lots to do in terms of development definitely should be looked at here, and the entire application should be reevaluated with that in mind. But I think even with that being said, I had problems with the uniqueness finding to begin with that weren't even based on that. It was more based on their uniqueness study and their belief that the only residential projects that would work here would be projects that were on a side street and not projects that were facing a large thoroughfare. I think if you look at Douglaston, it allows you to consider location, but only as one factor in many factors of uniqueness. It can't be the sole factor of uniqueness. And so what I'm getting from their argument, though, is it's their sole factor of uniqueness. because I'm not convinced by their economic obsolescence. You know, yes, people don't want diners anymore, but that's a market issue. That isn't so much an issue about this property that makes it unique. People throughout the city don't necessarily want diners anymore. And so there's been a contraction in the number of diners in the city. But to be honest, that makes the remaining diners pretty attractive, because I agree, like the two of you, when I'm looking for a diner because I want to have some eggs for lunch instead of some newfangled kind of dish, I'm looking for a diner. And they're few and far between. So, and when I get to the diner, they're usually packed with other people like me. So the remaining diners definitely are reaping the rewards of the fact that less diners are in operation, actually. So that being said, what that leaves me with is a locational argument. And then when I look at their uniqueness study, I'm confused by the way in which it weeds everything out, because it starts off with 651 lots in a 1,000-foot radius, commercial use permitted on 113 of them, leaving 538 properties in a purely residential district. 27 of those lots have frontage on Cross Bay Boulevard, but then it goes to 25 of those lots are exclusively residential, and 22 of them have frontage on a side street so they can orient their homes towards a side street. For some strange reason, the applicant feels that they are one of the three who don't have frontage on a side street, but they do have frontage on a side street, which really makes them one of 22 that are actually better off. And so how is that unique? But they don't even go into that. They leave us to just assume that they're one of the three. And so I have a problem with that. Then when you get to the return, I fully agree with you that the new ZHO has to be the basis of the as of right analysis here, because it does allow for a lot more FAR, more building typologies that are probably going to be successful in this area. And so that kind of renders the entire financial report just invalid at this point. So I feel like that they should rework this application and start from the premise that the new ZHO provides opportunities for them, and they may not even need to be here.
Yeah. Again, like I said, if they have to go through that first step. If it's viable, you don't need to come to us. And if it's not, then prove it. And then what are the alternatives? It cannot be a standalone diner. I just don't see standalone. A restaurant is the only viable solution to this site, not especially after ZHO. Commissioner Sheta, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to be repetitive, but I believe that considering the ZHO approach for the as of right probably is going to change the game plan for that application entirely. But I do have some comments. I'm going to start with the design for the proposed. I believe that the current design is impacting the adjacent residential, like with noise, with absence of landscaping. I'm talking about the property on the northern side of that proposed facility. So if they gonna design an eating and drinking establishment, they need to consider these kind of like factors. They need to like make sure that all the adjacent residentials are shielded from noise and other factors. So this is one thing. The other thing is I want to touch on that uniqueness argument. They gave me an impression that they argue that every L-shaped site is unique. And they are saying that the board always considered that L shape as a uniqueness component on variances. I want to say that I'm not an architect nor planner, but I have seen sites with L shape and that the shape doesn't contribute at all to the hardship component of that site. So I just want to put it in the record that not every L-shaped site is unique, or even if it is unique, I would argue that a rectangular site is unique because it has dimensions of 100.5 feet and there is no other site that has the same dimensions for the width or the depth. So uniqueness is not the important component here. It is the impact of that uniqueness on the hardship of that this site is facing. And I've seen too many L-shaped sites that shape does not contribute to the hardship component. So I just wanted to like make this or respond to this and make it clear that this is at least my position on the shape of the site. So that the argument based on the shape component is not helping. I believe the argument based on the obsolescence of the current uh, uh, diner is not helping much, I would say. So they need to elaborate on that if they're gonna proceed with the application. Again, I agree that the as of right need to be totally revised. And I did look at the construction cost quickly for the proposed. I have noticed that the cost per square foot is about $500. So I'm not sure that if it's a one-story building, why the cost is $500. So again, in the future, if they're gonna consider continuing with the application, they need to consider these kind of like comments and take a look at them one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just add that, though I don't want to talk about the neighborhood character and the designing of the diner, what I would say, if for any project that is considering a variance for like a eating, drinking establishment, because it's a use variance that is being asked, while the use variance has to be analyzed, the applicant should also design the building in a way and the site in a way that would comply with the typical findings that the board would look for had it been through a special permit of 73-311.
Yep.
So I think what Commissioner Shetta is stating is many of these things are not being addressed, would not be met by this project, like providing that buffer and at least dense buffering along the residential lot line. The issues with the fencing, the treatment, the opacity, all of those things are not being addressed and have not been looked at. But we are not there yet, and that's why I don't even want to talk about it, but it's more as a general note to applicants who are listening in, that if you're considering something, you need to kind of also design a building that would meet the elements of the findings that is there specifically for that purpose. Commissioner Yoon?
Thank you. I agree with everything that's been stated. I don't see how I can get past the A regardless of the ZHO, but the ZHO, we'll talk about that separately. I agree with Commissioner Otley Brown that the current restaurant has not been proven to be obsolete, and with the chair that even though it's a diner doesn't mean it can't be something else. I agree also with Commissioner Otley Brown that fronting on Cross Bay is not a hardship, especially when you also front on 95th Street. And with Commissioner Shetta that the L shape in this case is absolutely not a hardship. You can inscribe a rectangle approximately 100 feet by 135 feet onto this site, and it would consume 86% of the site. You're not losing a huge percentage to some massive irregularity here. So that claim is completely unfounded to me at this point. The uniqueness study says that the as of right, as shown, which was 3 separate detached 2-family homes, they would result in 3 very inefficient buildings. I find that really hard to believe. Just because those lots are deeper doesn't mean your house has to be worse. If we have smaller or weirder sites and you can't build something efficiently, I can see how that argument could be played out. But here you have plenty of space. So until you can prove that to us in some narrative form, I don't understand how having an excess of depth is actually causing you. If anything, it buffers you further from Cross Bay Boulevard. When you do apply the ZHO, which is admittedly very new and very different, especially for sites in this kind of zone, it does appear to me that you could get up to 35 units according to the density factor. And you could build a multifamily building here, which greatly changes your as of right scenario. And so I think the application has a lot of work to do before I think we could consider it to be a unique site that deserves some sort of relief.
All right, thank you.
Okay, done? So
Yeah.
this concludes the review session for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. We will resume at, it's 11:16 right now,
Let's say 30.
11:30?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll resume at 11:30 to start the public hearing.
You write it 3 times, you get it.
Choose, so the public, we're about to proceed with the public hearing section. Ms. Matias, we are strong. You might proceed.
Hey, good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for February 11th, 2025. The first item up is appeals calendar, new cases, 2024 43A, 42 Joanne Court, Staten Island. Good morning, Mr. Dale. Is anyone else with you?
Just myself today. Good morning.
Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed, as this is an appeals case. You don't need to be sworn in.
Good morning, Todd Dale for the applicant. I did listen to the review session for this application this morning, and will respond.
Mr. Dale, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to bring it to everybody's attention that we just received a DEP set of comments from DEP, and I believe it has been forwarded to you. If it has not been, the comments are pretty standard DEP comments, so those need to be responded to. I just wanted to bring that to your attention as you go through the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I did. I will confirm I received the email and we'll review and respond. We have submitted information to DEP previously and I appreciate this follow-up. But just to follow up on the items that were, sorry, that we responded this morning. So we did respond to the DEP questions, just received these new items and we'll respond accordingly. With respect to the Department of Transportation, there was an email that had been sent asking for clarification. I sent that to Ms. Ebanks Chu, and I believe she forwarded it to the Department of Transportation. But in brief, the core questions from the Department of Transportation was why this was a GCL 35 and not a GCL 36 application. We sent that information. I would note, though, that Department of Transportation did note that in a statement of facts, there is a typo referencing this as being in Community District 1, where it's actually Community District 3, which is reflected on the application form. But we'll fix that small typo in a statement in the next submission, just to confirm that this is the area of Community Board 3. With respect to the our third agency, the fire department, there were comments issued, but we had sent updated materials confirming that the existing private roads are 34 feet in width. And I believe that should address the fire department concerns because as fire apparatus access roads that are 34 feet in width, they meet all the requirements of the fire code. So there's no parking signs that would be required or any turning radius issues that would be required. And I would note that this is a general city law 35. No relief is sought with respect to these existing private roads. There was a waiver that was issued by the Department of Buildings pursuant to the exception provisions of general city law 36 because there is an existing home that has a CO to the east of this site. We'll wait for any additional comments, but we believe that, in short, the confirmation that these existing roads as shown on the survey and plans are 34 feet in width, that should resolve any fire department issues. And then thank you for finding the firm panel. My apologies, we just had the index number, it didn't list firm and then the index number, but we'll make sure it says firm from now on to make it easier to find.
Yeah, we get so many documents and sometimes.
Understood.
This helps. Thank you.
Yep. So at this point, I think it's just our responsibility to review the DEP and respond, and then wait for any comments from the fire department. But as I said, I believe that the 34-foot width confirmation should satisfy the department's concerns.
I believe is Deputy Chief Bellis in the audience? Yes. Okay.
You want to unmute Deputy Chief?
Do you, I don't know if you heard Mr. Dale's comments regarding the note. And according to the plans that he've submitted, the street widths are 34 feet. And therefore he believes the no parking and no standing sign would be needed because it would leave ample space for maneuverability. Did, do you, can you further, do you have anything to add to that?
You're muted, Deputy.
Deputy Chief, you're muted. You're still muted. Yeah, now you're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So the main concern is the bend on those turns, right? So the typical car is 6 feet wide. So with parking allowed on both sides, that would be 12 feet, bringing it down to 22 feet of space for clearance for a truck to maneuver through those turns. Typical truck needs about 25 feet to maneuver on turns.
Okay.
So that's why fire department was proposing for there to be no parking and no standing signs.
So it's really along the bend is where that no parking, no standing sign is being asked, not for the rest of the street frontage.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So Mr. Dale, please look into that and work.
I can look into it, but I would note that these roads aren't under review under this appeal. The private roads have been confirmed as acceptable with respect to GCL 36 pursuant to the Department of Buildings. These are existing, we're not proposing to build these private roads. We're not proposing to change them. There are already existing homes to the east that have had certificate of occupancies issued. I understand the concerns raised by the fire department, but that's outside the scope of this application. I can bring it up to these property owners, but we might be talking about things that are outside of these property owners' control, the existing HOA. I mean, how's this? I'm happy to bring it up and review it, but would just note as a initial threshold matter that these are items that have been approved by the Department of Buildings and are not what's under the scope of this appeal.
Yes, I agree that that DOB has reviewed the plans and they had no issues, but fire department is not asking for widening of the street. The fire department is only asking for no standing signs, just for sections of these parking of these streets. So it's not in any way is going to require any rebuilding of any street network of any sort. It's prohibited.
No, I understand, but these roads have been completed. It's a finished issue as far as the Department of Buildings is concerned. If these were under development or construction, I understand that, but this is not. These are completed roads, and that's why we provided the Department of Building information. I mean, that said, I'll reach out and see if there is something we can do, because if there is and it's not an issue, I'm happy to provide it. But if it's not something that is possible through the HOA, I would just, note that, what issues are actually under review under this appeal.
I would feel a little uncomfortable. I understand what you're saying is that, but I cannot question how it was reviewed, and I don't want things, standards and requirements may have changed over the time. And I don't know if there are ways for you to respond to fire department's comments.
As I said, we'll take a look at it, but this is the equivalent of if we had an adjacent neighbor and an adjacent site and adjacent property, we're happy to do something on property that we control, but we're talking about property that is not under the particular applicant's control. So, we'll look. I just want to, I don't want to seem like we're not going to try. And if there's something we can do, we will do it. But if it's not possible, we don't believe that these appeals, if they satisfy other findings, should be held up by design requests for sites that are outside the scope of the appeal.
It is. We did approve the GCL 36. I hear that. If this is a GCL 35 and oftentimes I need to look at the case laws. Carefully. Let's just. So I'm also going to look at the case laws and the requirements more carefully with regards to GCL 35 and look into that. But you should also look at this is really for the betterment of everything.
Sure.
And,
sorry to interrupt. No, I was just going to say, I understand, but Fire Code Section 503.2.3 says that fire apparatus access roads shall have an unobstructed width of not less than 34 feet, which these do, and except as provided in 2.3.1 and 2.3.4, an unobstructed vertical clearance of not less than 14 feet. These private roads meet the requirements of the fire code. So, if the fire department can cite a different section, we're happy to look at it. But, if we meet the code and the Department of Buildings has already issued a waiver, we're reaching into an area where these are requests that go beyond the scope of the law.
So, would you just look into whether it's possible to locate that sign along the private road that's not in front of your client's property?
I'm sorry, I did not hear that. It was a little garbled at the beginning.
Please look into the fire department's request to see if it's possible.
We will definitely look into it, but we're just noting for the record that we're looking into this, recognizing that this is outside the scope of the appeal.
Okay. I see Deputy Chief's hand up. Do you want to add anything to it? Do you understand the situation we're in?
Yes. I just wanted to add to the record the fire code which I'm going off, which would be 503.2.2.4 turning radius, which states the requiring turn radius of the fire apparatus access road shall be determined by the commissioner.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Dale? Let's go to the public.
So the case we're currently discussing is 43A 42 Joanne Court, Staten Island. Should you wish to discuss, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the Weber ID number 161-023-5395 and press the pound sign. At the prompt after that, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already and wish to participate, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to discuss.
I just wanted, reading this DEP email, think I'm going to need to understand what this means. The fourth comment on the drainage plan says that a map from 1962 shows 10-inch diameter sanitary and 18-inch diameter storm sewers in the bed of Orangeburg Avenue. It is necessary to provide a 37.3-foot wide sewer in the bed of Orangeburg Avenue for installation, maintenance, and/or reconstruction of the future sanitary and storm sewers. Is that a typical comment?
I can speak to that. Yes, there at times we'll receive comments like this. So there are drainage plans that DEP has that are theoretical drainage plans that match the map streets. And DEP may have on record a current drainage plan that includes future sewers in the bed of Orangeburg Avenue. No portion of Orangeburg has ever been developed, and these drainage plans just map these paper streets. What we've had on other GCL 35 applications is DEP sometimes will request that there be a modification of the drainage plan so that it's modified so that any other developments in the area that might be in the vicinity would have access to the city sewer system. It would just have to be not through this theoretical sewer on Orangeburg Avenue. So the short answer is for other GCL 35 applications, the board has granted applications on condition that the drainage plan be modified before TCO. That may be the case here. We'd have to review this particular drainage plan though, just to see if it's applicable to this site. So that will be part of our response.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very helpful.
I believe there is an error in that comment. It shouldn't be 37.3 feet wide sewer.
I would
It should
think
be-
not.
Yeah, it should be wide, like wide easement or wide distance in the bed. So this is like a distance they preserve for future installations. It's not a
Right.
sewer, actually.
Right. That would be quite the sewer. But yeah, so we will definitely review that. I mean, it's something that couldn't be provided under any instance if we were going to develop these buildings because, you know, easement or actual sewer. So if this drainage plan is actually active and doesn't have alternatives, we would review and if it's applicable, we would submit a request to the board to grant on condition that this drainage plan be modified prior to TCO, because the drainage plan modification does take some time, and we don't, in the past, we haven't wanted to have the applications just pending endlessly at the board while we were working with DEP to resolve that issue.
So just want to understand, if the drainage plan is active, that means it's built or it is proposed to be built?
No, it's theoretical. Just like, think of it this way, they call them, you know, like paper streets. These are theoretical streets. There are theoretical sewers under every street in the city. So it's not one-to-one, but in our experience, when you have these mapped streets, you have basically mapped sewers is the best way to think about it also. And DEP understandably wants to ensure that if you were building where they have these mapped sewers, they want to ensure that another property owner that might, in theory, connect to this city sewer has an alternative connection. So when you modify the drainage plan, you basically cut this out of the plan, but ensure that surrounding properties have access to a city sewer through alternate means or alternate connections.
And I know I've asked this, but how long does this process take and how is it initiated?
How's this? I will defer to any engineers who have had more recent experience, but when we've been involved in these projects, modification of the drainage plan can sometimes take 8 to 12 months, depending on the extent and you know what area and what borough and what departments you're working with. But I would say it's fair to say 12 months is a fair estimate, and because of that time frame, that's why you know, if the board's been satisfied, you know, in other instances, they've granted on condition, so it's not to keep this endlessly pending while we're waiting for that process. But I'll also, you know, in the interim, I'll make a note here. I'll talk to the engineers on this project and see if they have a more updated estimate on that, because I don't know if it's taking less or more time, or if 12 months is a perfect estimate, but I'll ask them about that, just so the board has that just for educational purposes.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the process then of amending the drainage plan starts in parallel with processing the work permit, and then both are, the hope is that by TCO, you have the approved amended drainage plan.
100%, because you would, I mean, these buildings would need to be connected. They would need to have a site connection, an SCP approval, and that SCP approval can happen with the modification concurrently.
Okay, so TCO is really the critical point, not CO.
TCO has been what it has been previously
Yeah.
under prior grants. So I'll review the time frame.
Yeah, that would be helpful. It's been a while since, we have gotten a project that requires amending the drainage plan, so I would like to know an updated schedule.
Sure.
That would be, yep, thank you. I don't think anybody called in.
No.
Okay. All right.
We're gonna-
I have to keep the record open because I just want the answer to some of these critical questions and comments.
No, understood. We'll review the fire department comment about the possibility of standing signs with no assurances, as we said, and we'll review the DEP comments and respond and include drainage modification, or excuse me, drainage plan modification information to supplement that.
How much time do you think you would need? March, April?
I think we can be flexible. I think the DEP turnaround, I think if we could have our submission date set sometime, maybe the second or third week of March, whatever hearing date corresponds to that.
March 24th, 25th hearing.
So if we would submit mid-March, I don't know what the corresponding hearing would be.
Yeah, I think it's March 6th is the submission.
March 6th?
Hold on.
Yeah, we can probably submit by March 6th, I think.
Right, and you would need to talk with the fire department for a waiver if that's the process.
I don't know if we would need, I mean, we're going to review the fire department issue. I don't know about any waiver being required for existing roads, but we can review the issue.
Let's go to the next case.
Item
which
number 16, sorry, 2024-44A 62 Joanne Court, Staten Island.
Good morning still. Todd Dale for the applicant. We did listen to review session. We received the updated DEP comments and we'll review and respond accordingly and include information regarding the time frame for drainage plan modification. For DOT, we did answer their questions. That should satisfy their concerns. And with respect to the fire department, as with the prior case, we will review the possibility of no standing signs. And if it's possible, we can include them, but we would note that this is an existing private road that's been approved. It's not seeking to be developed, and that it complies with the fire code, and that any retroactive application of the fire code wouldn't be appropriate. But that said, we'll review the issue to see if we can address that. And I believe that is it.
Okay.
Go to the public.
Let's go to the public.
The case we're currently discussing is 2024-44A 62 Joanne Court, Staten Island. Should you wish to discuss, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the webinar ID number 161023-5395 and press the pound sign. At the prompt after that, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to discuss.
So it's It's the same time frame, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Done? Yep.
We're good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dale.
Okay, thank you.
Zoning calendar, continued hearing items, item number 17, 2022-88BZ, 318 Seguin Avenue, Staten Island.
All right, who should I be looking for? Any applicants for this? Please raise your hand. Is there property owner, operator, architect, engineer, traffic engineer?
Anyone related to this case?
Once again, it is 2022-88BZ, 318 Seguin Avenue. Usually it's Jacqueline, isn't it, Jolene?
She's not-
Yeah, but she's not available.
Oh, is it Anthony? So,
Back to attend, but didn't represent to us whether they would be.
Do we need to go to the public?
Yeah, we'd go to
We
the
have
public,
to. Okay, so in that case, let's go to the public.
and then vote to close. And
okay, the
send them-
case that we currently have discussed is dial 6, we'll be discussing is 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you will enter the webinar ID number 161-023-5395 and press the pound sign. At the prompt after that, you press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already and wish to participate, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, we'll have 3 minutes in which to discuss. Oh, why is it going?
Nobody's raising their hands.
No, no one's calling in.
So while we are waiting for
Yeah.
anybody to call in, 076. Yeah, right, yeah. It's the first thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't see Saturn with the photo. You can see Jupiter, Venus, and Mars very clearly. Saturn, the problem was it's kind of on the descent, so it's on a lower scale of the horizon. So I couldn't. I was like,
The
thanks.
telescope or naked eye?
Naked eye. Naked eye.
When?
I last night I saw it at around 6 o'clock.
Oh, that's amazing.
6 o'clock in the evening, I could clearly see Mars red,
Oh, that's awesome.
Jupiter, bright, and then Venus, bright.
But to
Okay,
close,
no one raised their, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, no one has raised their hands or called in,
Ready.
so.
Okay, so as we had warned the applicant that they needed to submit something and no dismissal was going to be no adjournment, further adjournment was going to be allowed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a recommendation that we close this application, but keep the record open and give the applicant the date of March 24th, 25th for them to make a submission date by March 6th. And that will give precisely slightly less than 6 days, but the 30 days. But since they are working away, I don't see any reason why they cannot meet that. And the applicant needs to, if they want us to consider reviewing this case, they need to make a submission by March 6th for board to vote on a decision scheduled for March 24th.
Madam Chair, sorry, this is Carlo, and counsel's office will be issuing a letter.
I was just going to say that, yes, our council should send a letter now to the applicant, to the property owner.
And
Yeah.
project manager Ebanks Chu will inform the applicant's representative of the schedule.
Yeah. So March,
Oh, sorry.
submission,
Chair Chanda,
aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta.
Aye.
I didn't hear that.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon. Commissioner Yoon?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I want to be very clear, submission has to be made by March 6th.
All right, moving on. Item number 18, 2024-25 BZ, 17 Grove Avenue, Staten Island.
So this would be Fred
Fred
Becker. Anyone else from your team, Mr. Becker?
Yes, good. It'll be Amber Carchillian from GZA, the environmental people.
She's not here.
She should be momentarily then, but I can start with you.
I need to swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board comments?
I do.
Board questions, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Please
and
state-
Victoria is also here.
Oh, there she is. Bring her in. Let me swear in.
I see Amber in the room, so please swear her in.
Oh, wait till she appears. Thank you, Ms. Carlin, how are you? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The truth. Sorry, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Becker, please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at review session.
Frederick A. Becker, applicant. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I did listen to your review session. We're going to parse this into two separate.
Hold on. We're good. Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mr. Becker.
Into two separate areas. I will address the comments regarding the plans, and Ms. Carlin will address the issues regarding parking and the parking survey, et cetera. We will add a 6-foot fence along that, or something appropriate along the 12-foot easement. And we'll also show the details of fencing around the perimeter of the property as well as at both the entrance and the exit to the property. I will speak to Ms. Prenga about any details that the board requests or requires. We will add directional lines in the parking lot, entering on Grove and exiting on Maple, a few of them. We will add a stop sign at the exit on Maple. We will add wheel stops where appropriate, depending on where there are fences and such. We will paint the easement, the 4-foot easement that is on the top of the property, the northern edge where the 4-foot easement is. With regard to the loading zone is intended for drop-offs or pickups, quick drop-offs and pickups, cars, cabs, accessorides. It is permissible to have an easement that is momentarily blocked by a vehicle. We're not going to interfere with anything, certainly not for emergency purposes, so that the loading zone, we intend to keep the loading zone in that area. I will add the easement language, more details regarding the 12-foot and the 4-foot easement, and we will also add street trees in accordance with zoning section 33-44. I think I've addressed the chair's comments on, if there's anything I missed, please let me know.
Okay, so a couple of things. Regarding the 4-foot easement, I'm not the lawyer here with regards to property law and all other things. I just want to make sure that we are not at all approving any encroachment onto any of the easements. And because I don't know what the legal requirements are of easement, and I don't have the full language of the easement to even know what you're allowed and what you're not allowed.
Okay, so if I may add into that, I'll give you an example. It is very common, and I'm sure the board has encountered situations in Brooklyn, particularly where there is a shared easement between two adjoining property owners, usually an 8-foot driveway, 4 feet on each. Each party is allowed to use the easement for their own purposes. At some point, one is going to block coming in, coming out, where the other can't use it. So a temporary blockage, in my experience, and Mr. Vine can confirm this one way or the other, is that a temporary blockage is not going to negate the easement or interfere with the easement. This is basically an easement for emergency purposes. We will make sure not to be there. And the car, it's a temporary 30-second, 60-second blockage. It's not going to be anything permanent. It's not parking there. It's just loading and unloading.
Madam Chair, Mr. Williams is Kevin Williams is trying to get in. Could you let him in?
Yes.
He's asking to be let in.
Oh,
He's from
Kevin Williams.
Kevin Williams, yeah.
Okay, please swear him in also.
Yeah.
Swear him in also.
And he gets in.
I've let him in.
Please submit a copy of the easement documents.
Yeah, I need a copy of the easement document. I'm not going to make that assumption. I do know there are shared driveways where that is permitted because that is very clearly written in the homeowners association and bylaws. But without knowing that, I cannot assume that this is a shared easement because the 12 and that has been carved out for lot 117 says it's exclusively. So that's why I do not want to assume that.
I will be happy to provide the easement document for the 4-foot easement, and then we can go on from there.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Williams, excuse me. Mr. Williams, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and respond honestly to board member questions?
I do, thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Kevin Williams, GCAGO Environmental.
Hey, Chair,
Yeah, yes, Commissioner.
you wanna, if we want, we can add a note to the plan, to the site plan, saying that accuracy and limits of the shown easement is sole responsibility of the applicant. BSA is not waiving any encroachment in any of the easements on the subject side. So that way we can make it clear to whoever is going to take these drawings and work out of them that we're not waiving any encroachment on the easements. I can write down the language and send it to the project manager if you want.
Yeah, I think first of all, let's run it by our legal team.
I have a concern with that, just because the loading zone, if it has to move, could encroach on any
Yeah.
passage. It may affect the parking layout. and
Yeah.
A typical shared driveway doesn't necessarily serve as a means of egress from a single family or two family home, whereas this could. And so even a temporary blockage I mean, it's going to be 5 minutes or 10 minutes and that could be problematic. So I think we need to understand the nature of the easement first.
Yeah.
If there was more room where we could just push it over and it wouldn't impact any of the flow of the parking lot, perhaps, but I think it's a little bit tight for that.
I agree.
Again, this is a situation, it will never be an unmanned or unwomaned, unpersoned vehicle here that cannot be moved instantaneously. So that should be kept in mind. It's not a parking, it's not a standing zone. It can be moved in moments' notice.
We want to see the easement and
You'll get
let
the easement. You'll get the easement.
understand it before even we can think into the next line of thinking.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay. Go ahead. Cartelian or Mr. Williams, whoever wants to take it over.
Got it. Hello. Amber Cartelian, GZA, Geoenvironmental. We listened to the public review comments. We understand and appreciate the concerns regarding the parking demand assessment. And we just want to acknowledge the need to better align our analysis with the facility's actual intended programming. So I just want to start by clarifying what we previously prepared, and then I'm going to identify an approach to preparing the revised parking assessment that we hope will satisfy the board's concerns. So previously we had completed a comparative trip generation assessment, which compared DOT standard factor trip generation to the programming trip generation. And here we tried to weave together the information that we had on the actual programming of the facility with standard factors to identify what we felt was a more conservative estimate of daily parking demand. So for the program trip generation, while we didn't have the temporal distribution of the daily staff trips, of the daily trips for patients based on original data, we referenced DOT standard factors here for medical office use. And we also had existing patient surveys on modal splits. And we had the number of daily staff by shift, which also provided the staff temporal distribution. And while we didn't have staff survey data on mode splits, we referenced reverse journey to work data for the mode of staff travel. And when we compared the two trip generations, because the DOT standard factor trip generation produced more vehicle trips, we then completed the parking study and parking accumulation based on the DOT standard factors, referencing the ITE manual for the parking accumulation, which provides the hourly accumulation of parking based on surveys of numerous other medical office facilities. That said, I understand the concern that there's a disconnect here, and we recognize the need for a more tailored assessment. So to address this, we're proposing to basically bridge the gaps in the data that we have on the programming so that the trip generation and the parking accumulation both basically reference the programming in whole for all the factors. So to do this, we're proposing to survey the staff to identify the staff modal splits. We will collect information on the number of patients by hour for the existing facility and scale this to the proposed facility. And then we'll have basically what we feel is a complete data set to then revise the trip generation assessment based on the actual operations, and then prepare an hourly parking accumulation for patients and staffs, referencing this original data versus the ITE manual. And I also just wanted to clarify that the parking survey of the existing on-street parking utilization and availability only considers legal parking spaces.
And just for my understanding, when you're doing the legal parking, how are you looking at, are you going to the site and measuring the legal parking spaces, or are you using an aerial view and then based on that measuring off? How is that done?
Or do you want me to cover that?
Sure.
Hi, Kevin Williams, GZA. So we use a data collection consultant that does many of these based on a set of guidance. The first thing we do is we prepare a parking signage map that delineates all of the legal spaces based off of the DOT signage map. Then when they go out and survey, we physically survey on this. And of course, we recon the area and we delineate those spaces that are legal based off of whether it's alternate side of the street parking, whether it's no parking anytime, no standing anytime. We delineate only those legal spaces and we have our data collector follow that diagram and then in field note any differences between those. Like, so if they identify that something has changed from the map, they're not to count those spaces. So, and this is the standard operating procedure that they use to count spaces on all of our parking demand studies.
And how are you then addressing curb cuts? Because there are a lot of, the reason I'm emphasizing that is surrounding uses is predominantly residential uses, individual drive-throughs, and there are curb cuts. So how is that being measured?
Well, those are visually observed in the field and signed. So, obviously, if there's not, whatever it is, the 10 feet separation between driveway and parking signage, they don't count those spaces as legal. Like I said, this is something they do on a weekly basis. They know how to not count spaces because we get rejections back from DOT and have to do this work over again. So, driveways are automatically negated from our preliminary photogrammetry based off of signage locations. And then in field, they deploy like 4 or 5 people to walk the street to correlate the mapping we have provided with the actual legality of the spaces. So, I think we have that backup. I can show it, but we certainly take into account residential driveways and, the amount of cars. We will certainly double check and verify that, but I've reviewed all of the data, came in and spend some time, but this is if there are errors in it, there should not be, because they've been double checked in. It's the standard operating procedure for the data collection in the field per DOT requirements, exactly as the state.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I know you know this very well. I wanted to hear it from you and have it on the record that indicates this is how the procedure is and this is how the procedure is being carried through. And it is a good refresher for all the commissioners in terms of what's the current standard. So,
and I would note, Commissioner, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. The one thing that may be kind of triggering this notion is that what you have during the day is, people on street parking, for their residential spaces depart during the day. So you wind up having availability during commercial hours in the area. We're very aware that this, all sections of Staten Island, but this in particular, there's constrained parking, but there is that sort of typical flow of parking that occurs in this neighborhood.
I definitely would like to see the by the hour accumulation of staff, because without that, I'm going to handle the data.
Yeah, Chair, I did want to admit that that's, so what Amber is suggesting, because I think the problem with this study is we are sort of contorted in the methodology here and trying to provide sort of 2 approaches, one using sort of data collected not related to this project, whether it's census data or whether it's these International Traffic Institute that has aggregated data from like hundreds of community and has enter and exit times for patients assumed, which is what we use to do the parking accumulation here. The issue when we are doing patron surveys is you're kind of limited from HIPAA laws about inquiring too much about patron visits. So, duration of stay, was a little bit too difficult to patron survey. When people come in, they want to be private, so it was difficult to do first person surveys, but we did to get the mode split. But we do understand it's sort of like we're using apples and oranges and then we're making the pear out of it, you know, and I think that but I do think the staff piece is something that we can certainly get targeted temporal standards and make this much more consistent in terms of direct data sources. So I don't want to mea culpa this, you know, because Amber tried to tie all the pieces while she was away from what I did. She did the best job that she could. So we will get it consistent. And I think we have all of your comments. So you know, I think that staff survey, and then you know, we'll speak to the operator and to see if we can get the logs, just the raw entry and exit logs, to get an estimate of time in terms of patient stays, so we can get a really targeted demand rather than kind of combining census and the accumulation diagrams, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions for the team? Let's then go to the public.
Okay, the case that we're waiting for Joe, sorry. Thank you, Jella. The case we're currently discussing is 2024-25 BZ, 17 Grove Avenue, Staten Island. Should you wish to discuss, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you enter the webinar ID number 161-023-5395 and press the pound sign. At the prompt after that, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand. Once you're recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to discuss. There's a Victor from Famulari.
Famulari.
Please unmute, sir.
Okay, hi, I apologize. I was number 17, and I don't want to take the other person's time. I understood we have to submit the drawings by March 6th, correct?
Mr. Are you part of the team?
He's calling for the JMV Seguin.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Are you
I
one
apologize. Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make clear that the drawings will be ready for March 6th.
Wait, Mr. Fulmary, please stop talking. Let the chair speak.
Just for further instructions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to comment on 2024-25 BZ 17 Grove Avenue, Staten Island?
We have 13 seconds left.
13 minutes.
The clock is stopped. Okay, no one's called in or raised a hand that belongs to this case.
Okay. How much time would you need to provide a revised set of documents?
We would, looking at the board's calendar, since there's only one April hearing, which is early and too early for us, we would request the May 5th, 6th hearing, if that is possible, Madam Chair.
It is open.
Then we would like it, please.
Okay, May 5th, 6th.
And
Right.
submission, what is the submission date, please?
Mission date is April 17th. Does that work?
It works for me. Amber, Kevin?
Kevin, what do you think in terms of collecting additional data? I think that should.
100% can do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
great. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Should I stay on?
Are you for the next case too, Amber?
Yes.
Okay, stay on. Item number 19, new cases, 2024-31 BZ, 166 North 12th Street, Brooklyn. You still have to be sworn in again anyway.
I'm sorry, someone's typing and the microphone is picking it up. Please.
Yeah, it's been doing it for a while. I thought it was Mev, but I don't know who the heck it is.
I think it's your background noise.
Not mine.
Anyone have
It was me, sorry.
YouTube? Thank you.
It's okay, Amber. Sorry about that. It's loud on this side. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, Mr. Lobel, who is with your team, and Alexa, just you, Alexia, who else?
Robert Kahn, the project architect, Katrina Flora, the project manager, Amber Kartalian, the environmental consultant, me and Alexia.
And Alice as well. Alice.
Alice. All right,
Shepherd,
Anthony.
the
Okay.
founder and director.
Okay, Anthony Sullivan, who is he? Is he part of your team?
Yes, he is with the architect.
Okay.
All right. I think we have everyone.
You
Liz
have
Shep-
everyone?
Here.
Okay, everyone, unmute. Unmute, please. Raise your right hands so I can swear you in. Mr. Sullivan and Ms. Shepherd, please unmute so I can hear you when you respond. Thank you. Oy. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do.
I
Please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at review session. Mr. Lobel, if you're.
Sheldon Lobel, PC, Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. We had representatives attend the executive session and are prepared to respond to the board's comments. As an initial matter, we would like to thank the board for their careful consideration of this application and for their discussion of the strong support by Councilmember Lincoln Ressler, the arts and education communities in New York City, as well as the unanimous vote of Brooklyn Community Board 1 in supporting this application. We are here today with Alice Shepherd, the founder and director of Kinetic Light. And as the board has noted, this is a unique organization and will allow for a building which will not merely allow for a special place and home for Kinetic Light, but would also provide greater than required access in terms of disabled artists, as well as those visiting the theater. It is really a special opportunity in the city, and it is one which has been recognized by everyone who has looked at this application. We do recognize the board's comments primarily with regards to the programmatic needs of Kinetic Light and understand the board's discussion of section 5452 with regards to accessibility or safety retrofits. We will, as per the board's comments, address this section. We thank the board for its suggestions and recommendations. Obviously, a new section and one which has not previously been before the board. So we're happy to incorporate this into our discussion, not merely with regards to the program needs of Kinetic Light, but also with regards to the nature of the existing building. As Commissioner Shedda noted, the dilapidated condition of the building and the importance of allowing the applicant to exceed permitted demolition in order to satisfy their program needs in excess of what would otherwise be permitted under the rule. I would just go on to state that we had also understand the board's comments with regards to noise regulation and notations on the plans. We can indeed note the plans in terms of noise mitigation measures and have already begun to do so. We also note the board's comments with regards to elevators to the roof and have confirmed from the applicant team that it is merely mechanical space on the roof and it is not intended for open use. So we're happy to clarify that for the record. I think just with regards to procedural matters, generally, we would just, and if this is more appropriate for us to address this with the executive director and general counsel, we would ask whether or not the board wishes us to actually obtain an objection from the Department of Building with regards to 5452. I see the chair nodding her head yes, so I'm going to assume that that is correct, that we should make that approach to DOB.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that regard, we would note that we will, in addition to using precedent as was forwarded by the board in terms of BAM as well as Ronald McDonald House, We do note there are other cases that have been before the board, specifically 80-07BZ. This is the Clover Housing Development Fund Corp case. This was a nonprofit on Manhattan's Upper West Side, which was required to demolish greater than, at that time, 75% of the building pursuant to Section 5441, permitted reconstruction due to the deteriorating condition of the building, as well as requirements to update the building in terms of safety and other modern plumbing and electric conveniences. And so at that point, the board did allow for the applicant, after having obtained that objection, to demolish greater than would have been permitted under that rule. Similarly here, we're going to apply that same rationale in terms of our opportunity to update the construction here. And finally, in terms of this portion of the presentation, we would note the board's comments with regards to the actual extent of the waivers required here. They are indeed less than as was originally set forth by the applicant, given the opportunity to allow for a permitted obstruction in the rear of the site up to 23 feet or 1 story, and so can address this, what amounts to be a rather minimal waiver in terms of the margin, the difference between what would be permitted as of right versus what is now presented to the board. It amounts to much lesser waiver, which also I think adds to our argument in terms of what needs to be approved before the board prior to the issuance of, again, what amounts to be minor variances here. So Chair, Commissioners, we know that we have Dr. Shepard here as well as Mr. Khan, who are able to address program and architectural aspects of the building, if that is the board's request at this time. So we would put that to the board.
I would very much. I know I have had the distinct honor of. One second, I just got it. Honor of Ms. Shepard. So I do want the other board members to hear about the program.
Hello, welcome and thank you, Madam Chairperson. It's my honor to speak to you all today. I'm here representing Kinetic Light as one of the nation's premier disability arts organizations. We work in deep, large, complex production intensively and aesthetically accessible multisensory dance, film, and access technology. But what we're here to talk about today is the vision and hope and dream for a building that considers access in a very, very different way. We know that you all are familiar with the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. What we are thinking about here and have designed here is a space that hosts the peculiar needs of our own aerial work, our huge sets, and our desires to make this complex work, but a space that can host our audiences equitably, that thinks about seating arrangements and large-scale work, and also a place where we can rehearse the work, train for the work, do our administrative work, as well as offer spaces for other disabled artists to rehearse, produce, and perform their own work. The accessibility of this building is multiple. It thinks about the interactions of all the different spaces, from performance to seating to rehearsal. And you can see that in the layout and the design, from the elevators to the corridors to the spaces themselves, to the highly filtered air and the relationship of the spaces to outdoor spaces for COVID safety and greater increased COVID safety post-pandemic. But mostly, and what we're designing here is a building that is imagined to be operable, inhabitable, workable, performable by any disabled person with any disability, be that backstage as production, in the booth as production, front of house management staff, on stage as performance, or in the audience as an audience member, upstairs rehearsing. The space is designed to be accessible in ways that are basically beyond the Americans with Disabilities Act in terms of measurements and spaces and lines and design, but also in terms of the conceptualization of access as a place where people can belong. People can have home, people can work and be able to fulfill their own artistic dreams as well as the company's artistic dreams. In terms of the measurements and the diagrams and that kind of layout, you have all that detailed information in front of you. So I'm going to stop there and hold at the vision and ask if there are other questions for that part.
Any questions for Ms. Shepherd? No, thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Khan.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I was in the unfortunate position of having to follow Alice Shepherd, which is always difficult. But yeah, are there any specific things you would like me to go over with the plans, walk you through them?
No, actually, the plans and the way the program details were laid out, I thought they were very well put together. It was very easy to follow the plan and the program. So I just thought if you wanted us to know anything specific, features or anything that we need to be mindful of, this would be great. But I'm being biased. That's my personal opinion. I like the plan.
I will just add that, as you can imagine, it's a real privilege to work on something like this because we're inventing things that have not been done before with the guidance of Kinetic Light and others. And we're hoping that when this is all done, it will be something that will be useful to an entire, community of other people trying to do similar work. Yeah, and I'm grateful for all your comments and help. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to know, is there any funding deadline or anything that we need to be mindful of?
Or deadline?
Or any other deadline of anything that we need to?
On the space or anything like that?
All right, soft commitments or anything?
Katrina, Alice, I'd defer to the two of you.
Kinetic Light has a lease for a space they're working in and out of right now. That lease does expire at the end of January 2027. So we are working on a timetable of trying to move into this new home at 166 North 12th Street as soon as possible. So there is time considerations in terms of continuing to advance the project and ensure there's no gap or lapse in Kinetic Light being able to.
Do you have a commitment on that space? Is there a soft commitment or are you already locked into a lease at that new space?
There is the new space as in.
They own the site, I believe, right?
Oh, do you own the site?
Sorry, we are very firm that our landlord is not going to renew the lease in our current space. There is no space other than this space. And we are ready to go on that. The organization is going to be leasing from the landlord, just to set that up, and we are clear to go on that.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, just to clarify, I believe the statement of facts said that the site was purchased in 2022 after an extensive site selection process, right? So it is in there, they have site control.
Oh, okay. That was then my mistake.
Should public?
Yes. All right. If there aren't any other questions for the team, I would like to go to the public.
So the case that we're currently discussing is 2024-31 BC, 166 North 12th Street, Brooklyn. Should you wish to discuss, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the WebEx ID number 161-023-5394. Press the pound sign. At the prompt after that, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you will press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute if you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already and wish to participate, please raise a Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you will have 3 minutes in which to discuss.
While we're waiting for anybody from public to call in, how much time would you need, Mr. Lobel, to rearrange the finding A?
So Chair, to the extent, again, confirming that we would be obtaining a new objection from the Department of Buildings. It looks to me like 6 weeks for submission would be adequate for us to obtain that objection as well as to rework the materials in support of the A finding.
Okay. I would, first of all, I want to give a big hand to our counsel. He has been championing. He has been championing this case from the beginning. So if you have any questions during this process of need clarification, you should reach out to general counsel on this matter. But along with this, I would say revise the plans to reflect some of the comments that was raised regarding the noise, and especially the diagram that shows the waiver area that is being requested.
Ms. Benke's hand is up, Commissioner.
Yeah, Ms. Benke?
Hi, I also wanted to mention that we've been working with the applicant team with the noise analysis in the EAS, and we'll continue to do so with the EP. So if that, to the extent that that affects any plans.
Okay. I do have a question on this one. Since this is an as-of-right use, we're not waiving the use, and none of the bulk waivers are being requested, except for the bulk of the increased rear wall height from 23 feet to 31 feet. The extent of the review, I'm assuming for the noise, is limited to that rear wall, the rear roof at the height of 31 feet.
Amber can confirm, but most of the focus has been on the terraces.
Yeah, the focus has been on the outdoor terraces. Specifically, DEP has asked us to evaluate the third floor and the fifth floor terrace as though they were, the methodology is to evaluate them as though they were playgrounds, because there's no standard noise factors for a use like this. So it's basically an evaluation of potential impact on surrounding receptors associated with the use of those terraces.
All right. So 6 weeks takes us to April. 6 weeks to submit?
To submit, correct, Chair.
That takes us to April. April submission deadline is March 20th, April 7th and 8th.
That seems to be ideal. And Chair, we would also be remiss if we did not echo the Chair's comment with regards to Mr. Vine, as well as Ms. Prenya and Mr. Costanza. The board and their staff have been extraordinarily helpful here, and we really just are absolutely in love with this project, and as an applicant team, are just thrilled to bring this to the board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliva.
We do have a great team. And so is yours. So all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, next case, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Item number 2024 41BZ 10539 Crossway Boulevard.
We have anyone else?
Okay, so this is Elise. Who else is with you, Miss?
Barbara, I see, and then Giuseppe.
Okay, yeah, I just see.
Just waiting for Mr. Anzalone. Anzalone. Okay, could you unmute Mr. Anzalone? Okay, raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do.
State your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at review session, Ms. Fuller.
Thank you so much. Elise Fullader from Eric Palatnik PC. We heard your comments today. I'm here with Giuseppe. He's the architect on the project, and Barbara. You know, Barbara, financial analysis. And a lot has changed since we filed this project, and we can acknowledge that a lot has changed. So we heard all your comments about CHO, and Giuseppe took a look just now, and he can tell you a little bit about that. But we are going to restudy the entire site and what it provides, and we understand that. But we still believe that once we take a look, the buildings that will be permitted there will probably be inefficient, because he took a look, but we will show that, and we'll show how they don't work on that block. And this site does have a history. Even before the board, it was an eating and drinking establishment. It's been an eating and drinking establishment for like 50 plus years. So, you know, and the board had established that this was unique, but I understand that was under different circumstances because CHO changes things. So we will just take a deeper look, and we'll redo our finances and figure out how to show you and go through the process that we went through when designing the site with you, and show deeper how the building that's there doesn't work, because it was done in multiple parts. It was expanded over and over again. The kitchens doesn't work anymore, and we believe that that building cannot be reused if a new tenant was to come in.
Yeah, just to add, you know, we looked at it very carefully. We looked at all the records as well. The current building was built over 4 alterations, starting from 1957, the latest one in 2003. So it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different alterations that were done over the years. Besides what the board already mentioned with the building being high and handicap accessibility, the construction's all different from space to space. As it is, it would never be able to accommodate a drive-through anyhow. The yards just aren't.
But not just a drive-through, we also have to establish that it wouldn't even be able to, for a new eating and drinking establishment. Let's say there was no drive-through. Anyone who used that building as an eating and drinking establishment, correct?
Yeah, it would require, you know, complete demolition. Also keep in mind, I did look at the zoning with the new City of Yes, of course, changes a few things. However, you know, it is a through block, but the lot is not deep enough where you could viably say you could put housing on both sides, because it's less than 190 feet deep, and you still have to maintain a rear yard between the two sets of buildings, which kind of really hurts the site. But we believe we can demonstrate that and submit new schematics.
Okay. And I think this is really where the text gets interesting and challenging, because we are used to the old simplified text format. It does become challenging and interesting. And so do look through it, because there is a provision that allows for shallower rear yard on a through lot. And some of the sections that I cited speak to that. So go through that. It is not your 60-foot rear yard requirement. And it is, so it is much less. So please don't go through the exercise with the sole objective of proving ZHO is not applicable. Go through the exercise of where it's possible. And then if it is not possible, then that's that. But apply the ZHO in its full extent where it is. You can't right now. The proposal was picking and choosing. It says it's a qualified site. Therefore I'm allowed 1.5 FAR, but I'm only doing single family homes, detached homes, and I need a rear yard depth of this. So it's picking and choosing. So stay along the same line. And
that
since
partially, sorry to just back us up, but partially the problem with that is we filed this months before the change and then tried to accommodate for the change.
I agree. Yes, I agree. That has been the problem, but and you filed it before even the ZHO was adopted, and you did not know what would allow you. Now that you know, go through that.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. Will do.
And that makes Ms. Cohen's exercise even more interesting, because you need to look at an as-of-right project, and then you need to kind of scale it down. If an as-of-right is not permitted, could you do a mix? Since the site had a history, could you do a dining with residential above, or could you do a dining structure on a portion of the site with residential on the other portion of the site? Those things, you have to walk us through those impossibilities before you can say nothing works. And the only thing I can do is tear the existing building down and build another standalone one.
Yeah,
because You tear it down anyway. It's not even you're proposing to maintain the existing structure and enlarge it.
Yeah. And we did go through the exercise as a team trying to figure out, like for months, how we could use the foundation, how we could use the existing building. And I guess we could go deeper into that in the statement of facts, but we decided it's not possible to use it.
Yeah, I mean, also, if we look at possibly using, doing a mixed use with commercial, I mean, it's still a variance. We still have to come from the board. It's not as of right. So, you know, the parameters for that we would be, you know, we would be, you know, taking a, you know, educated guess at, you know.
Yeah.
I would argue that bringing a car dependent use like a drive-through into a lower density residential district would be the greater variance than actually supplying residential in this district. So I think that's why the chair is saying you have to prove that all of those other scenarios that we would consider lesser variances don't work. I don't know if you agree with me, Chair, but yeah,
Yeah.
And I guess there's like two sides to every coin, you know, I'm just thinking about it too, but like this site has been an eating and drinking establishment, and I understand it has a drive-through too, but like 65 plus years. So, and it's on a major commercial thoroughfare. So that's like, you know, and it had a history of being considered a unique and appropriate for that location. So that's kind of where our thought process was too, when choosing this use. Because the building does get smaller. It's a smaller eating and drinking stuff.
Well, the existing building's about 5,800 square feet. The proposed is 2,600 square feet. So density is, you know, much less. And we're also going from 170 persons that's on the C of O now to 65, which is being proposed.
So you hearing the commissioners, you have to go through each one of those situations. I understand history, you have had the zoning, but you've had a pre-existing use, but as we are all recognizing that the zoning has changed dramatically to allow for something different, you have to prove that that cannot achieve a equal or better return on the site and is not at all viable, and then go through the rest of the exercises of what you do. And I'm seriously saying, look at lesser variance alternatives to make your point before you get down to a site that is a standalone eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through.
Understood.
Okay. So any questions or suggestions or thoughts? Okay. Let's go to the public, and this is going to be a major change. So you do need to make sure you are in communication with the community board in terms of the changes in submission. Somebody has their hand.
Me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I just ask a quick question of Commissioner Brown, whether you evaluated all the other pieces, comparables for site value and so on, and if you had any comments so that I don't, you know, kind of get them later and then I'm back again. If not, that's fine. We can do it on the next go round.
So most of my comments literally had to do with the as of right and doing an analysis that was the largest envelope you could get. That was basically most of my comments. So as for the site value, accounting for all of the available area you have, and as for the home sales, accounting for the largest homes or residential building that you could build, basically. I was fine with your residential comps. I was fine with your construction costs and your cap rate.
I have a question, Commissioner Otley Brown. The proposed, the as of right considered home ownership, right?
3 2-family homes.
3 2-family. In this case, as of right, if a multiple dwelling unit is permitted, chances are that they may not be home ownership. They may be more rental. So the would then have to be changed.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, no, that's understood, that whatever the plans are presented and reworked and lesser variance and as of right, all of that, they all get the appropriate, whether it's rent or ownership or whatever. Yeah, more comparables, more work, more more analysis. So that's fine. Yeah, so that's all good. Okay. I was more concerned about site value or any things like that, and look, I'll look at that too now that the zoning has changed. So the development potential is a little different too. So, okay, that's fine.
Any other questions or comments? Let's go to the public.
The case that we're currently discussing is 2024-41BZ 10539 Cross Bay Boulevard, Queens. Should you wish to discuss, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you will enter the webinar ID number 161023-5395 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you will press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, press star 9 to raise your hand. Star 6 to unmute if you're calling it on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to discuss.
Mr. Famulari, who's there, who is for Segwin, so.
Yeah, we'll chat with him after if you want to.
Please do reach out to Mr. Famulari.
Ms. Fullader, how much time, do we ask how much time she needs?
Oh,
How much time would you need to make the
what do you guys think? 2 months?
2 months?
Well, do you guys agree, Barbara and Giuseppe?
Well, I think it really is about the architect working through all these
Yeah.
scenarios.
Yeah,
I can get more analysis done in 2 months.
okay. Because like the part is you get like a month or a month and a half, and then Barbara needs like a few
Right.
weeks.
No, I'm good.
So should we say May? May 5th, 6th?
Yeah, because I guess in April would be the submission date.
Yeah, April 17th is a submission.
Okay,
Okay,
yep, sounds good.
okay. Okay. Mr. Famulari, this is, if you, I believe you're here for Segwin. We heard it, and you may reach out to the project manager or Ms. Matthias regarding your question. But we are taking speakers for 105-39 Cross Bay Boulevard, Queens.
So no one has called in or raised their hands on this case. Time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
Take care.
everybody.
Mr. Fulmolari, Miss Jolene Eubanks-Jew will reach out to you. It's a March 24th hearing with a March 6th submission, but we'll reach out to you. This concludes the public hearing for February 11th,
It's
2000. I'm
Okay.
sorry, what happened?
Hold on, if, Mr. Fenley, if you don't have Ms. Eubanks-Drew's,
Sorry, we can't hear you. It's sort
What's
of cutting
going
in and out.
the contact information, can you speak to the applicant from JV Associates who is representing the application?
Did you hear that?
Mr. Fulminari, Miss Banky will get, Miss Banky, sorry. Miss Eubanks-Drew and I will we'll get in touch with you, but we have your number, I would assume, from J&V Associates.
Why don't we just give him an email?
Yeah. Jolene, you want to give him your email?
Oh, no, just
Maybe
give
not
the
on
phone
the
number.
hearing. Yeah, just the,
Just exchange a chat note. Just share that.
Okay.
Oh, we don't have- Oh, we don't?
No?
Okay, could we read out an email or phone
Can
number?
it's JEVANKSCHU at bsa.nyc.gov.
And mine is T Matias, Matias at bsa.nyc.gov. Okay.
you.
All right. We're done? Okay, this concludes the public hearing for February 11th, 2025. Thank you, one and all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.